Hey, like mentioned, I'm Steve Romenesko. I had a liver transplant my freshman year of high school, December 22nd of 2003 it would have been, so I celebrated 6 years happily as an anniversary last December. But before I get started, I'd just like everybody to give my parents a round of applause because there's no way in the world. Thank you very much, you guys. I wouldn't have been able to get through it without you. Well, I guess I'll start at the beginning because that makes the most sense. My adventure down this road started in 6th grade. I was pretty sick for a couple of weeks, and my mom, when I was that young, was always reluctant to take me into the doctor. She thought I was always faking it. I think my wrist was broken for a week in 4th grade before we could get it. She's dying, so I'm telling this story right now. Anywho, going to the doctor, and they can't really find anything wrong with me. It happens for a couple weeks. Tests go on, and tests go on, and tests go on, and they don't really find anything. Well, my pediatrician decides to take some blood tests, just to check, taking an average panel of what they normally do. The numbers came back, and they didn't look so hot. My GGT, which is a liver enzyme count, was somewhere in the thousands, where the average person has it between 30 and 60. So that was pretty off. She called us back in, and I was terrified of needles at that point. Now it's old habit. But at the time, I was terrified. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know what was happening. I got scheduled after hours to see a liver doctor that was an adult liver doctor, because in Appleton, where I'm from, they didn't have any pediatric ones. And all this happening with me not really sure what's going on, not understanding the severity of the situation, which there's kind of a funny story about that. That's later. Time passes on. I get put on medications. Go to Madison to see some doctors, which was exciting at that age. I don't know. I always enjoyed it. Madison was always the capital of the state, and that was a big deal at the time. Time goes on and things progress, and my numbers still don't look that hot in the liver numbers all through middle school and everything. And summer after my 8th grade year, or I guess I forgot a little bit, I eventually was diagnosed with a disease known as primary sclerosing cholangitis, which is an autoimmune disease where your immune system attacks your liver, and the main problem is that your bile ducts are shrinking, which is what bile is kind of, your liver filters the toxins out of your blood, and bile is kind of like those toxins that are put into this bile. It's made into bile, put in your intestines, it gets passed through, average person, no problems. My bile ducts are shrinking, so what happens was shrinking bile ducts means the bile pools and gets caught in your liver. It sits there and gets infected is really the main issue, as well as liver failure. Well, things keep going on. I had a battery of tests that were always done. Liver biopsies, the ERCP, which is like a camera down your throat, and a whole numerous other things. Well, summer after my 8th grade year of school, I get told I have to have a liver transplant. We were in Madison, and I can remember, what the room looked like, what the view was out the window, how the doctor was when he told me. And at the time, it just tacked it on as another test. Okay, whatever, I'll get thrown on the liver transplant list. Hopefully it stays, I'll let it go. Good enough. So anywho, when you get put on the transplant list, like Tom said, it's a big deal, to say the least. I went down to go get blood tests taken, and usually there's a couple labels that they throw on the tubes. Well, they come out with the labels, and they had the stack of it. The guy lets it drop. The labels hit the floor and keep rolling. I think 21 tubes was the amount of blood, or the amount of tubes they took out of me and counted. It was kind of a comical situation. I got a kick out of it. It just rolls and hits the floor. It's like something out of a cartoon. I got put on the transplant list and waited a few months, and I didn't really know what was going on at the time. I entered high school, and that was new and exciting. Except I apparently looked terrible. Not something I'll admit to, and not something I thought of at the time, but I was pale as a ghost because I was extremely anemic. I weighed something around 80 pounds as a freshman in high school. And eventually one day, it was, like I said, December 22nd of 2003, I was in Mr. Seipel's internet use class, sitting in the middle row on the right, 2 chairs back. And I get told, oh, and it's about 2 minutes before lunchtime. It was the day before winter break started, so I was really pumped, and I was really excited for lunch because I was starving. They called me down to the office about 5 or so minutes before lunch starts, and I think to myself, well, why am I going down to the office? What the heck? I'm walking through the commons in my high school to see, it'd be like looking just straight through right here, and I see my mom standing by the office with tears in her eyes, and it's the only time I've ever kind of had a fight or flight response kick in. I thought to myself, I could just turn around and run, and none of this would ever I would never have to deal with any of this. It's a thought that I honestly considered and one that went through my mind, but then the rational side of me kicked in and said, what in the world are you thinking? Keep going. Got in the car with my mom and got to the office, and she said, hey, they have a liver for you in Madison. We need to get down there as soon as we can because these things need to go quickly. So get in the van with my mom, and she's driving back to our house, going about 80 miles an hour on a road that probably you should only go 35 on. I mentioned this to her as we're going, and she slows it down a bit. Get home, grab the bags that we've had packed for months, and head down to Madison. And also, like Tom said, it's never a go until they actually have you on the operating table and they're going ahead. Something can still go wrong. So false alarms are a very real possibility. Luckily, not something I had to deal with. I was on the transplant list for only a few months, which was really lucky. Get down to Madison, and they do a bunch of blood tests and things like that again. And there's this very specific moment in my mind of one of the doctors walking in and bringing in a sheet for me to sign, saying, if you sign this, we'll go ahead with everything, but by all means, you don't have to sign this. There's the risks from the surgery, this, and this. So I always thought that was really interesting. It seems like something that you need to get done, but still they're saying, you don't have to do this, but I really had to. I wouldn't have made it much longer if I didn't. I can remember the Packers were playing football that night. I want to say I was against the 49ers, and Brett Favre had one of the best games of his life. And anywho, they wheel me down to surgery. I'm in the room, and much like the other situation, I remember the anesthesiologist saying, hey, I'm this person. He was wearing a Santa hat with a badger on it, because it was right near Christmas. And then I was out for... Apparently, the first thing I asked when I got out of surgery was asking if my parents got any sleep, which I'm assuming they didn't. It was it was like a 10-hour surgery. And then the second question I asked was, did the Packers win? And I was pretty out of it. There's December